Hey guys and girls, Bored Now back with you. On this video I'm going to be talking about the first episode of the Diplomat. So season 1, episode 1, the episode is called The Cinderella Thing. Recent Netflix series, which all 8 episodes of season 1 are up now. It's a political thriller. You've got Deborah Kahn involved. She was one of the big writers behind Homeland, and it stars Keri Russell in the lead role. She plays a political ambassador to go to Kabul to try and help smooth things over with the ongoing conflict in that district. She's new to this role, but she's excited to get started and get her teeth sinked into something worthwhile. But then there's an incident with a UK freighter being blown up to a change of plan where she's sent to the UK to be an in-between for the US and the UK as ambassador there, which she's disappointed by because she sort of sees it as a bit of like a come down, whereas the stuff in Kabul seemed a lot more meaty. Such a role would go to her husband, bit of a history, like some colourful language. Because he has a certain history, because he's the more experienced one, then people start respecting him a lot more, and he starts getting more of the attention and starts taking it away from his wife and her role. And the whole thing is poking at sort of kind of sexism and about how this woman is struggling to get out from her husband's shadow, fish out of water, because it's like she's given the raw welcome and what have you, and it's suggested to her then even though she's there, and she says at one point, I'm here really to attend 14 funerals and to investigate what happened. It's suggested to her then it would be better PR and it would look better and you would be more effective in the role if you did this fancy photo shoot where it's all a big British royal style affair. Keri Russell plays the fish out of water so well, like it's another sort of side to her where I think she's very good at disappearing into a role like this. Then the president may want to get rid of her, like, because at one point she talks him into like cooling off for a day before going in all guns blazing, because she certainly thinks that then a more restrained approach is the way to go. Planted a bit to keep an eye on her, but he's also speaking up for her, saying, well, let's give her a chance to cover at least episode 2, and I'll see how I go from there, because it's 8 episodes and it depends what else I'm up to. So to sum up, I would say it's a solid enough pilot. I had a pretty good time with it. Obviously, political thrillers can be very hit and miss. Some can be really engaging and others can be a bit bland and dull and they feel quite dry. This felt a bit like this at first, like there wasn't a lot of style to it, and there were certain scenes that weren't really that engaging, but I think for a first episode it was quite enjoyable and watchable. Like Keri Russell's a natural in the lead role. I do like some of her comic timing at times, like, you know, when she's being shown around this stately manor and they're sort of bragging about how Cary Grant lived there with his wife and how just things about it's the second biggest of its kind behind Buckingham Palace, and she rolls her eyes like, oh please, and then when she first like drives in, welcome for her, she's like, holy shit, and just her reacting and just her like not really wanting to play ball with all this. Like, just she wants to get down to the job. She's very nervous about it. It's very well done. Like, Russell is very convincing in this sort of role, and in any role she's always very watchable. I think Rufus Sewell's very good at as the husband, because the thing with his character is it would be easy for him to come across as like really like shallow and superficial and not that likable, partly because he's spending the whole episode taking the spotlight on her, off her, and causing disruption. And it's making some points about how, like, a man politician so often is still taken more seriously than a female just because of his gender. Often she's not being given more respect, like she's not being given her own car for like this sort of visit, and her role borrows a police car to what they call a dodgy Tory, referred to at one point, this very controversial like politician. So he starts talking to her, and that doesn't play very well, but it's at this like state funeral, takes the spotlight on her, off her, gets, you know, in the press and starts causing some problems. But I think Rufus Sewell plays him as very detached, very naive almost, and there's a certain charisma, so the character in the end isn't that unlikable, but we get more into their stuff as the episode goes on, where it's revealed later on then they're potentially going to break up, like their marriage is on the rocks. And that was one of the smart details, because earlier in the episode where they're being shown around this palace, contact them, she inspected the bed twice, like to see if there were covers on, and they come back to that later in the episode. He asks the woman, why did you mention that? And she mentions because it's the other bedroom, and he clocks, okay, they're having marriage problems, they're not sleeping in the same bedroom. So he starts worrying about how that could play, how if this is going to be the next vice president, it's not going to help her chances if she's not in a marriage and if she's not married. And so once again, it digs into that old-fashioned thing, which probably is a negative whether you're a man or a woman, but I'm guessing it's seen as a bit more of a negative for a woman just because of the way things are. So you get this thing where he's trying to convince how the name is the Rufus Sewell character, then he's got to make the marriage work. And it's so funny because like the Keri Russell is like the opposite of Hal, because Hal seems in total denial that there's even a problem. And I think there's a little bit of him taking her for granted, because even though he says it's not going to do any good to force it, like I can't force it, it's got to happen in its own time, he also seems overly confident that they can fix it and make it work, and it just plays a little bit like he's taking her for granted, and it's like, oh, of course she'll come back to me. But I think those moments are well done, and like the sexism, it makes some good points, and I think importantly it keeps it quite light-hearted, but it has some nice sort of commentary and some fun sort of snappy dialogue at times. Like, it's not the most lively thing you'll see or the most engaging, but it's a solid enough episode, well carried by Russell, and Swell's good as well. Solid cast. I thought the guy who played like her sort of right hand man with the British, I enjoyed his presence quite a bit in the episode. This episode, I think it's really solid and sets up some fun things. So nearby to this incident was being rowed by Iranis, so that seems to indicate then their involvement. Catherine decides to cement her position so that it's almost impossible for her to be fired. Then she will do the photo shoot after all, and that's where the Cinderella thing comes from, because it's referred to as a Cinderella thing. Stuff in the episode is Russell just being this outsider and just not fitting in and not wanting to play ball, pomp and circumstances, but she decides to do it at the end because like she just feels the president can't really sack her if she does this photo shoot and is projecting all this positivity in the press, and main guy who's maybe gonna alter things even more in the edit just to make it look even more like, yeah, this is a princess, look at this, that kind of thing. But also the end of the episode with the cliffhanger is then Rufus Stroll's Hell is injected with something and passes out and is kidnapped up from most of the episode, where he seems to be taking most of the spotlight, so I like that. So yeah, someone's kidnapped him. Now, I did wonder if it was going to turn out him out the way because they thought he was causing more problems than he was worth, so it could be seen as that, in which case it's like a bit of satirical humour where it's like, look at the extremes they're going to. Or there could be something more to it. There might be something else going on and we might be going into other areas with this stuff. Maybe something a bit darker. But yeah, that was a pretty fun end to the episode. Let me know your thoughts if you've seen episode 1 of The Diplomat. If you've seen any further, don't let me know any spoilers because I'm going to check out episode 2, but do give your impressions of the show and stuff, however far you've seen into it, and look out for more TV and movie reviews coming up on the channel soon. Thanks for listening and goodbye.